What's going on, everybody? This is Token Gaijin here, bringing you the first episode of Around the Pit, here with my motley crew of gaming friends. And today we're going to be playing this with the background of Civilization V. If you haven't played Civilization V, go unbury yourself from that hole you live in and go get the game. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. And basically, Around the Pit, what it involves is this. Every week or every other week, me and the guys get together. We look around what's going on in gaming, and we discuss it, openly. It's basically going to be like an open web forum. We're going to post it on YouTube, and please follow along, post in the comments, open in discussion, because that's what it's all about. We want to make sure that, gamers are coming together, talking about like-minded things, and, just having open discussion. That's what this is about. And this week, of course, E3 is on its way. So let's get started with the introductions, because we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, E3 going down, a lot in the gaming world. So let's get to it. I am myself, of course, the host. This is Token Gaijin. Hello, gamers. Then I have my second command, the website's sort of editor, also our video web editor, Eric, who is Stash Burnside. What's going on, Eric?
What's going on, guys? It's been an exciting week so far, and hopefully we'll be hearing some more good news as the week goes on.
Excellent. And also the site's other main author, Brian, Mr. Deathwraith. How you doing, Brian?
That'd be better if I had a voice, but otherwise, just fine.
And we also have special guest commentary. You've seen him on our Border Plays. It is Brent, a.k.a. Mr. Heidi Ho.
What's going on, everybody?
All right.
We'll have an exciting show today.
Exactly. E3, a lot to talk about. I'm making Persepolis right now. As you can see, I can't rename it yet for some reason. Oh, there we go. Edit the name. All right. And, oh, yeah, you will be Tokenopolis, I believe. Anyway, getting on, a lot of things going on in E3, a lot of stuff going on, guys. So far, me and Stash and Heidi have been really kind of following it along. And, we've been kind of following on the day-to-day, looking at other videos, things like that. Brian's, a.k.a. Deathwraith, he's kind of more of the neutral opinion, and we kind of wanted to bring that into the show because, it's always good to have a well-rounded opinion when you're discussing things like that. So bringing us a more, kind of neutral opinion than the rest of us going, which we might be a little bit more biased because we've been following it a little religiously. But let's get to it. Let's start things off. Let's go over the consoles. Big thing in E3, Xbox One was the first one kind of to be, kind of come out, things like that. And, initial thoughts, guys. What do you think about the Xbox One, especially its release?
Well, in terms of positive things, I think of the major parties we have here, I think the Xbox had easily one of the better game reveals because with their event a few weeks ago where they just introduced us to the system and were like TV this, TV that, sports, TV. I think it was really refreshing to see all the games they had to introduce, and I think they have a really strong lineup. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think they did do something really well, and that was they did have a lot of nice, a lot of games that were kind of introduced. I think my biggest problem, though, is a lot of the games that we saw through the Xbox conference, I don't know if it was just me, it seemed a lot more like trailers than it was actual gameplay.
Yeah.
And which was kind of disappointing because we want to see the gameplay, you know what I mean?
Well, we did get a fair amount of gameplay from the games they did have. I mean, of course, you only see, like, the teaser trailer for the new Halo. I mean, obviously, they're not going to jump that gun too early. I think we got a fair amount for what they were, giving us anyway.
And they did kind of come out the boat. They were kind of rocking the exclusive boat, or at least trying to, it seemed.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, they did spend a lot of money on this. I think it was estimated several million just to try and lock in exclusives. So
I think they said they were doing $1 billion is what they're investing in titles, not necessarily exclusive titles. But
I heard that too. They really pushed for exclusive games.
Yeah. And you kind of get the sense of that, although, a lot of people are talking about the other things going on with the game, which the system. We have to get to this about the Xbox One. First off, Xbox One, it is $499.99 for the system. And I will say this, I was kind of glad Xbox did finally jump into Blu-ray. We knew that had to come, or it was going to fall behind. Like, it just had to happen. Had to be the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I think many people would be disappointed if they did not have Blu-ray.
Exactly. I mean, if they kind of stationed themselves as a media hub, kind of cross off, if they hadn't have gone Blu-ray, it would have been done. It would have been finished.
My thought from the Xbox One is I like what they did. Like, I love the fact that where the aspect of a multimedia system because it's more of just a gaming system, which that will appeal to other customers.
Right.
It's just especially with their deals with EA and with sports, and because I know they push with like the updates on fantasy football, and I know a lot of people enjoy that, including myself. I like how they did, and I like how they had the Connect, where you can control the system and do dual operating things such as the internet and gaming and TV and whatnot. However, the only downside is what we're going to be coming to each time we talk about this issue is just always being connected online.
Yeah, that's a big one. Which kind of, I mean, that's a pretty good point. We should actually move on to the online thing. I think that's kind of the big one of the big things in the room. I mean, the Xbox One. I mean, just glancing over a couple things real quick. Along with the Blu-ray, it does have built-in game DVR, so you can record from the thing. And both the PS4 and the Xbox One have it, but they both have different systems kind of going for it. And it looks like they're very close in RAM. CPUs are a little bit different. And they both have 500 gigabytes coming off, so that's nice. 500 gigabyte hard drive, which is nice.
I heard that speaking of the processors, that the Xbox had like an 8 or like they had like an 8 gigabyte, and then
they both have 8 gig.
PlayStation had like 4 gigabytes.
It's a little different. It's actually they both come out to be 8 gigs. They both come out to be 8 gigs.
Right. I'm just saying that. I heard that the 2.4 were operating a little bit differently in PlayStation.
Yeah, they're rocking a GDDR5, if I believe, and then the Xbox One is rocking a DDR3.
Processing power is a little bit better if they implement that correctly. Anyway.
Yeah, the way that
is a big problem too.
But also the Xbox One does have external storage through USB, which is kind of nice. So we do get some external storage. Although 500 gigs, we'll have to see how big these save files are starting to become. But it shouldn't be too bad. 500 gigs seems like a nice reasonable amount.
Well, the problem with the 360 and I'm not going to go too in depth with the problems just yet, but memory allocation for game saves, not a big deal. It's going to be the mandatory installs on every game you put into that machine. Like that is going to hog it.
Now it does have cloud storage though, so that's going to a nice little plus for the Xbox One, especially when you're trying to clear up some space. Now, here's the thing. Let's get to that. Here are the things that are kind of a little questionable about the Xbox One. That, I mean, if you are new to the internet, you probably haven't heard about it. But other than that, you've probably been looking this stuff up. Biggest one right here: mandatory internet connection. That's a big one.
That kills me. I mean, there are plenty of people that I know who want to play a first-player game, or don't have internet connections.
Right.
And, you can't even play, from what I hear, you can't even play a one-player game without being connected to the internet.
You have to do a 24-hour update,
once a day. And another thing, just to continue off of that, I mean, it might sound like not that big a problem to a lot of us who are just like, oh, whatever, I'm online all the time anyway. But you got to remember that there's like a lot of people out there who either don't have the best of internet, like people out in the Midwest. I mean, you guys know.
Yeah, right.
There's lots of people out in the boondocks who are just like, I don't have the greatest internet connection ever. I mean,
dude, I used to live in Bowling Green.
Dudes who are all over the place with no internet connection. It's crazy. I mean, that's
right.
It's just locking so many people out.
That, but also, if you say you go on vacation or something and you don't, watch TV, which requires you to turn on your Xbox.
Right. Yeah. You can't take this thing on a car ride. Like, if you're doing a road trip and you want to play some Xbox One on the road, how the fuck are you supposed to do that?
Well, you'd have to lug along to, like, Connect and everything else.
Yeah, it's basically just like, I can't travel with the damn thing, What the...
Well, consider this. If the power goes out, you can't, or rather, if your internet goes out...
You're done. You're SOL. You can't do shit, yeah. Dude, what I'm going to do, bust out my DS, Oh, man, I haven't touched you, Pokemon, in a long time. And here's
that's not even the scratching the surface there. Like, what if we have a big DDoS attack on like Microsoft servers and they go to pull a PlayStation network and are down for a week?
Yeah, and I would not put it past the internet community to do such a thing. I'm not imploring it. Yeah, I'm not imploring it or saying that it should be done. But I mean, come on, like people on the internet are crazy. They'll do anything to prove a point. So, I mean, I really think that this was ill thought out on their part. And it kind of brings me to another thing that I feel is a little ill thought out, because they reaffirmed everything. Like, you know, this was all done during the Microsoft kind of release that they did. But it's all confirmed now. And here's the other one, too. Mandatory game installs and no used games.
Well, not necessarily. The used game thing is a little tricky because they've said, and they're pushing the blame here, they're just saying, oh, it's up to the developers. And I'll just use EA as an example because they're an easy one to target. If you guys remember, they said that we're not doing online passes anymore. And we were all like, oh, great, that's a good sign. But it turns out that
they're doing this,
game plan, what they could do is basically say, okay, take the game to your friend's house or whatever. He's going to have to pay $30 to play it.
Yeah.
Now, that makes it complicated because they said, oh, you can still trade it into GameStop or what have you. GameStop's going to say, okay, we'll charge you $20, but you're going to have to go home and pay $30, and you only saved $10, so we really haven't gotten anywhere. I think that's where we're going to end up, and I think that is going to be a huge problem that they haven't really thought out.
And here's the other thing, too, and this is kind of what I thought killed it for me. So let's say me and Stash both have a game we both like. You know, I'm just basically like, you know, shooting, you know, we're chilling one day. He's like, oh, man, dude, I love this new, you know, Halo, the new Halo 5. It's glorious. It's glorious. Can I borrow it? And essentially, this is what's going to end up turn up happening. Basically, he's going to have to take the game, purchase it from me, and then after he purchases it from me, he can play the game. Like, why should he have to purchase the game to play it if it's my copy? I bought it. I have the right to let whoever I want play it.
That's the whole debate here. Microsoft has set a standard. You're no longer just buying a game to own it. You are renting a term of service to use that software. You no longer own the disc. You do not own the game. You own the right to play that game.
Which I think is kind of ridiculous. Like, I mean, I get that they're trying to stop piracy, but it feels like they're kind of taking it too far. Like, I mean, think of it this way. I mean, like, if you buy a game, like, this is kind of where it kills me. Because Xbox's whole demonstration was about kind of like they were trying to position it as something, you know, for more casual players and more hardcore to both kind of get their kicks out of. Which is fine. They're trying to hit two markets with one stone, and that's great. You know what? Hit your market share, try to get your business, and do your thing. But where it kills it is they're really trying to strive a lot of social media, like, oh, this is for the everyday gamer too. But where they're killing it right there is the everyday gamer. I mean, like, people that, you know, buy the Wii, they go for Nintendo, you know, something that, you know, you can pick up and, you know, use as a social media hub, use for movies and things like that. This kind of hurts it in a way because, I mean, think about it. Like, the casual gaming audience, you know, think of it. All the moms out there, the parents, they buy a game. It doesn't work out for their kid. If their kid opens it, doesn't like it, they want to do a return. They're kind of SOL at this point. I mean, how are we going to do returns with this? I mean,
that does raise an interesting point. I imagine that what they'll have is a system where you can basically just wipe the system clean, and the gamer tag is where all of that, you know, all your games are basically saved to the cloud or whatever, and they can pull from that. I think it's just going to be that. You don't think so?
No. I think it'll end up being like Steam, no return.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree with that. I'm just saying as far as the system itself, like the actual Xbox One, if I was like, oh, I don't want this anymore, I'm going to go trade it in. You don't think you'd be able to trade in the system?
The system itself. See, I think the system will be taken, but at the same time, I mean, like, it's the thing is, it's a lot harder to trade in a system than it is to trade in a game, and I think that's going to really, you know, put people off too. Like, it's going to hit Microsoft's market share. Because people are going to learn really quickly. Like, you know, like people that aren't watching E3 or aren't reading up on this stuff, you know, their kid's going to be like, I want the Xbox. You know, parents are going to read up on it. Like my parents, you know, when I was like, oh, I want the White Ranger Megazord, my mom didn't care what it did. She just got it. And, you know, if they...
I just, having worked in retail with video games for quite a few years, I think it's the parents that are not reading up on anything.
Right. And that...
Same generation of parents that buy 12-year-olds Call of Duty all day long.
Right, and I think that's where the problem's going to come in, because if these parents are going to buy it, their kids aren't going to want it anymore, because they're like, oh, I can't return these games, and then they're going to, you know, it's going to become it's going to hit their market share, because, you know, people that aren't as informed about these things are just going to be like, oh, you know, it's Xbox. My kid loves Xbox. Here you go.
Right. Yeah, and they're going to find that when they get home and they're like, oh, well, you need to be connected to the internet, you need this, that, and the third. It's just going to be a lot of, you need this, and it's going to be a lot of stuff that's difficult to explain to parents who might not be so tech savvy, you know? Like,
Yeah.
oh, you've got to be connected to the internet. It has to check home once every day. You don't technically own your games. It installs mandatorily. That kind of stuff is just extra fluff that if you go, oh, well, with a PS4, you don't have to do any of that. They're going to go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of where, and we need to try and stay more on topic with Xbox One in general about their thing. But I feel like when they did the release too, you know, a lot of people weren't really clapping about it, and a lot of people aren't excited because I mean, I've sold electronics before. Like, you know, I sold cell phones for a long time, and the biggest thing is like I feel like you're gonna need like a freaking Xbox One store just so you can actually walk people through how to, you know, do all this stuff. I mean, not everyone is as intelligent as, you know, your average person. Like, you know, there are some people out there that are less informed and they don't know how to do this stuff, and you know, all these updates, all this other stuff, it's really gonna hit them.
Explain it really good. Like they'll have to come up with some way to make the system very easy to set up. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the world will fail.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be kind of, you know, the problem. And as long as the name goes, here's the thing too. I mean, cross game chat, we knew that was going to happen, and the Connect 2, I will say this about the Connect 2, I never really liked the Connect 1 just because I feel like every time I tell it to do something, it never does it. But the Connect 2, it's always on. That bothers me a little bit.
And I think
What are
that's
you
definitely
doing,
something to be...
Yeah, what are you doing?
Exactly. I hate that you do that, Dave.
Dave.
I think that is... I mean, I understand where they're coming from, and I think that actually is a cool feature. But
Right.
I can understand people being like, hey, that's like a huge invasion of privacy, knowing that this thing is always listening. But Microsoft did confirm that it's only ever listening for the Xbox on command when it's off. But that
I don't
doesn't
think
necessarily mean it's not listening to just listen. It's not.
Right.
It's listening for a command in order to do something. But it's I still think it's data mining, if you ask me.
Well, the thing too
Call me
is
paranoid.
well, the other thing here too is like I don't mind if it's not actually watching anything. Here's the other thing: it's a power drain. You have an extra application running on your, you know, through the outlet that you don't need. Like, I don't need a higher electricity bill for something I'm never going to use. Like, if I get an Xbox One, I am never going to use the Kinect. I hate that thing.
Well, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's basically like you have to get a higher electric bill because we had this really good idea at one point, and then we muddled it, and here's the second version of it, so, you know, your punishment must be more severe.
Well, to be fair, the Kinect 2 does look very impressive for what it is. Like you said, I have no real interest in it. I know core gamers like us are probably going to use it only very slightly, like maybe the Xbox on command wants to show our friends. But, I mean, it's just, it doesn't strike me as something that should be forced on everyone. And I think if we could maybe touch on the price point a little bit here, I think that the Kinect 2 being so sophisticated is what really drove it up to that $500.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that, and especially since I feel that Xbox had or Microsoft did a really smart thing. They did not bundle the Smart Glass with it. Smart Glass is intriguing. I do like the way it looks, but my biggest fear with Smart Glass is basically that might have driven the cost up to the extremes if they put that in.
Yeah, me and Brent were actually sitting there and talking about this the whole time while we were watching the PlayStation 4 event last time, and he and I were both on the thought that, well, they're probably both going to end up being the same cost here, and it got me thinking that that doesn't quite make sense because the architecture, like we described earlier, is basically the same. They're running the same x86 system. They're running almost the same
almost same chipset too.
Yeah.
Camera.
It's that camera that I don't give two craps about that's driving it up to $500, and that is such a huge difference, especially to core gamers who are thinking, man, I could get basically the same thing with the PS4.
Yeah. And I will say they did do some stuff right. I mean, they do have the achievement porting. They do have Lime Stream up. I will say the web connection, they do have an updated web connection for the system. No Bluetooth. A bit shocked on that one. Even the Wii U has Bluetooth.
Yes, it does.
The Xbox One does not, so a little shocked on that one.
I actually think that the Xbox is, and I'll let Brent get on this too because I know he was thinking the same thing, and just some of the TV features are cool.
Right.
I think that they just pushed it too hard.
Yeah. Like, I know people use Netflix on the Xbox a lot. I do too, but that's because my PS3 broke. Like, I have a Gen 1 PS3. I had a launch PS3, and that thing, it broke because I moved it and then I hit it, and now it's kaput. You know, it's nothing that the PS3 did. But here's the biggest thing about that. It's just like, I get that a lot of people use Netflix on it. I'm gonna be honest. I don't like Netflix on the Xbox. I feel like the interface is clunky. It's just like, oh, I made it for the Kinect. It's like, I'm not a fucking Jedi. I don't go around waving my goddamn hands like, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I don't need that feature.
I think they said that.
Okay.
Well, go ahead, Mike.
On the opposite side, yes, we're talking about all the negative things, and I've always been an Xbox fan. To be honest, I like the 360 better than the PS3.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm in the minority here, but
Probably not.
No, probably not. No. I like my Xbox a lot, I'll be honest. I love Xbox. I think there's a lot of things that Microsoft has done better than Sony in the past. Like, they just have. Like, online play, regardless.
Xbox, yes, all the points that you hit are very true with, with the $100 extra cost, with the gaming and everything. However, I do believe that, with where Microsoft is going with, the multi-media effects, with everything like that, I believe that in the future that will probably become standard. However,
right.
Until that point to where everybody is online, yes, it is just a pain in the butt. They're headed in the right direction, I think, because I think that's a PlayStation is eventually going to adopt that as well, maybe in the PS5 or whenever that comes out. Until that time, it's just going to be the Xbox One is just going to be a little bit of a hassle just because of the things it requires. And that's why I think it's good. It's good that they implemented that idea, but I think it's just too early.
Yeah,
right.
I think so too. I think they jumped the gun.
I think we have another case of Dreamcast syndrome here,
Yo.
if I may, because I agree wholeheartedly that this whole DRM issue, where they're going to basically take away our ownership and basically switch to this full digital service like Steam, where you can't return everything and blah blah blah. But
it brings an argument. I think it brings that argument.
I think they're doing it too soon, and for anyone, Sony, Nintendo, whoever, they're all sitting pretty knowing that we're sticking to the same old plan and it's going to work for us for this generation.
Right.
But, this choice for Microsoft to be so anti-consumer, if I may, is just in bad taste, too soon, whatever you want to say. I think it was just a wrong move, and I think that's going to be what ultimately decides this generation, because people flippin' love used games, whether it's just people being cheap, the accessibility of it, just the small savings here and there.
Yeah, I think that too. That's actually a great point, and I think the biggest thing with it too is just really the way it all came across too. I get that you're trying to stop piracy and all this bullshit, but the way they're presenting it is all in the wrong way. They're basically kind of sounding like they're money grubbing right now. They're basically like, oh, well, it's your fault because we're losing all this money. It's basically like, oh, we're going to take the power away from you. We're going to hold it so that way we make sure that we get more money and we're all set. It's just like the way they're going about it to me is just so quintessentially wrong. It's just like, I get it. You're having a problem with piracy. That's fine. Me as a consumer of games, I don't like when people pirate because, it takes away from the developer, and sometimes, lesser developers, like indie developers, things like that, they can't keep doing what they do because they're not making the money because it's being pirated. So yeah, I get that argument.
So much piracy as it is just them trying to combat used game sales. That is enemy number one to consoles, is just used games, because nobody sees any kickback there except for the third-party seller.
Yeah.
So I think I agree with you that it's like this big, oh, you guys are pirating everything, so we're going to punish you kind of mentality, when it's just like we're all pretty much, I like to think anyway, smart consumers, and we get a deal when we can. So a used game, beat it. And it's not even just used games, it's game rentals, it's borrowing from a friend, it's a whole lot of things that they're punishing us for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what are those services going to do? They're looking at Xbox probably right now going, well, okay, flip them the bird, let's go this way.
Yeah, especially, look at Redbox. Redbox is the #1 growing rental business in the entire United States. I mean, you can find a Redbox everywhere. There's probably a strip club downtown with a Redbox. Hookers getting out of work and going to pick up a movie.
Hey, man.
I mean, it's just. I mean, I know I just said hooker for stripper. If you're a stripper, it's a profession. You make money. You're not a hooker. Anyway,
They're not even people.
gotta hit that market. But basically, yeah, I think that Microsoft, they had a good presentation, but I feel like the system itself is still. It just has all these kind of negatives to it, and they really didn't address them at E3. I feel like they just kind of reiterated them. And they explained a little bit, but not in a good way. They didn't really kind of present it in a new light that really changes it. It just kind of feels like we're being punished as opposed to, oh, hey, here's my product. And the name. Here's the thing. I don't know about you guys, but what is in a name? Xbox One. Not digging the name.
Yeah, since the Xbox One already exists.
Not the first Xbox.
Yeah.
And just, I would rather have 720,
Yeah, and here's my thinking, too. If you can call it Xbox One, I'm fine with you calling it Xbox One. But here is the only reason why you could call it Xbox One, because there's always been already been two Xboxes. You made it a system which was backwards compatible with both the other Xboxes, and your explanation was it's the Xbox One because you only need this one Xbox to get the whole experience. Boom, done. That's all you needed.
There is your problem, because I think this is one of the bigger differences between Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo as well. Microsoft is first and foremost, like anybody else, a company. They're trying to get that They're trying to get that bottom line. And if you remove the necessity for a 360 or even an Xbox One, the original Xbox, I guess I should call it now, then no one's going to buy it anymore. I mean, you saw it on their press conference. They're releasing a new version of the Xbox 360 that looks like an Xbox One. They are fully intent on you still having to buy that console to play those games. They don't want to do that because that's money out of their pocket, and they are looking for that bottom line, my friend.
Oh man, yeah, they're gonna milk us for all it is. It's just how it is. But let's move on. Xbox One. I feel bad. We've been really mean to you. Had some good points in the counter argument, but let's move on to the other one. The big news right now, because the Sony release that they had, the little demo. I'm going to be honest, I was pissed at that Sony thing, because if you watch it, like, they didn't show shit. It was basically like, it's like when you're a little kid and you're trying to watch through the fuzzy porn. You just couldn't see anything. It's just like, here's a fuzzy picture of a black rectangle. We swear it's the PS... Yeah, it's...
Right.
We swear it's a PS4. Take our word for it. So I watched it, I'm just like, what the fuck is this shit? And then, Microsoft comes out, and I'm like, I hate what Microsoft's deciding at their conference, but I feel like I actually achieved some sort of semblance of what the hell they were selling.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree. I think that...
This is for their conferences, not from E3. But this is from their conferences, yeah.
The pre-release of the system.
But
I mean, I was thinking at the time, before yesterday, I should say, that, I don't really get what they're doing. I'm really
me neither.
But when it all came together, it came together. Like, it was
it rocked it.
It was flawless, and it
all
made
right,
sense to me then.
And let's get to that right there. I'll make a quick point, and then I'll go on to it, because I think this is what Sony did. Their president came out, he spoke. His speech, to me, was perfectly worded. Because I've seen him at the past at E3, and the past at E3, he's kind of come off as like, oh, what are games? I'm a gamer. You can trust me, wink. But this one, I felt like he knew exactly what to do, and this is what I think they did. I think what Sony did was they sat back, and they realized that they came out and said, we're going to do our Sony release, and then they heard that Xbox was like, oh, we have to counter. So Xbox like, we're going to counter, here's ours after the date. I think Sony played it smart, and I'm not sure this is what happened, but I'd like to think it because this is how it feels like it happened. Basically, Sony was just like, all right, well, we won't reveal too much about the PS4. We'll wait for Microsoft to do theirs, and then we'll launch everything at E3, the big event that everyone's waiting for, and then that's when we'll basically just see what they did, see what people don't like, and we can adjust. That's all they had to do.
Let them walk through the minefield first, blow up all the mines, and then we'll walk behind them.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of how it was catered at E3 too.
Yeah, me and Brent were talking about this all through the Sony conference yesterday. I was telling him this was Sony's game to lose. They let Xbox do all the bad talking first.
Yeah,
basically, and they let them set up the precedent, and whether they decided to change it last minute or not, which I don't think that happened. I think the decisions are made a long time ago.
Right.
They let them, like Brian said, just walk through the minefield, and they came out on the other side, golden, shining, and looking like the next coming of Christ. It was glorious. And I think here's the thing too: we literally don't know if they changed anything before E3. We don't. Like, we can assume. Yeah, I highly doubt too. But
you know, you never know, and that's kind of the thing. Like, they were set up in a position where they literally could have come out with dog shit and put a diamond on it, and it would, you know, they had the perfect dog shit to sell us. It was just it. Like, they knew what they were doing. They were prepared. There was a point when the president came out to speak about the PS4. I literally thought he could just take the mic and drop it. He'd be like, use games, drop the mic, walk away.
They should have dropped that damn mic.
They should have, you know. But let's talk about the PS4 itself. Big thing off the bat, price. It's $100 cheaper. It's $399.99 from the Xbox One. It's going to keep the Blu-ray standard. If they got rid of Blu-ray, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing, Sony? Yeah, it is. It also has game built-in DVR. It's a little different than Xbox. I will say this about the Xbox One. Going back to Xbox One, I will give it a point. I do like that they both have built-in game DVR because we cast games on the internet, so this is big for us.
Yay!
But the big thing I will say, PS4, their in-game built-in DVR is not as kind of nice as the Xbox ones. I will say that Xbox went a little bit more out of the way for that. So kind of interesting to see.
The big deal there, and I think this is going to be the big game changer for them, is that they have access to Twitch. Now, I know we don't personally use Twitch, but I know Twitch is big in the Let's Play community.
Huge.
And that kind of thing. And PlayStation was really all about, oh, you stream, and everyone's going, wait, you stream? What? Okay, whatever. So I think Xbox has the leg up there.
What is Twitch again?
Twitch is
it's a lot like YouTube and stuff, but it's mostly for games. It's like
it's like COD,
like live casts and Let's Plays and like the stuff we do is sort of centered
there. It's sort of centered at Twitch, and the big thing is that I know you play, you know, Sony's pushing that, but I feel like that's kind of a point that kind of drops the ball for Sony. I mean, I do like that they're going for in-game DVR, but I mean, Twitch, I will be honest, is so much better. Like, I love Sony. I love what they're doing. But, man, I really feel like they kind of dropped the ball on that one, personally.
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah, and here we go. The RAM, it's got the GDDR5 processor. Looks like it's going to be, if they do it right, hopefully they will. It'll be all set up. They do have for the CPU a single chip times 86 AMD Jaguar processor, 8-core. Excited about that. And their processor, I think their processor is set to be a little bit better than Microsoft's. I'm not sure on that one.
It's a little complicated comparing the two. It's just if they implement GDDR5 well, it can arguably run better. But architecturally and system-wise, they are almost identical.
Identical, yeah. Storage is the same, 500 gigabytes. Nice to see. And you don't have, this is the nice one, you do not have to have mandatory game installs. So it's going to actually feel like 500 gigs.
And they
which
also
is going to be kind of nice.
They're doing the same thing where they did with the PS3. The hard drive is removable, customizable, and it's like a generic PC volume again, I believe.
And plus there's cloud storage too. Cloud storage 2 is coming to PS4, so that was nice to see. External storage, it's to be announced. We're not really sure about the external storage yet. I assume there's going to be USB again because they had it on the last one. I used an external for a long time, so I wouldn't be surprised if that comes out. Mm-hmm. Mandatory game installs, that was a big one. Required internet connection is a no, and you can use used games. I think that was a big one right there. Like the president, like going back to E3, he came out, you know, after the speech from their developers and their designers, and they had some game trailers and things like that, which was really nice. I think that the PS4 had a lot more gameplay in their actual presentation, which I liked. I mean, it wasn't all the best gameplay, but it was nice to see. I mean, especially Destiny, but kind of the big thing right there was the literal first thing he touched on was used games. And he basically said it. It's like, I'm giving powers back to the players. I think that was the most intelligent thing he did all night.
I agree. I think giving the power to the consumers where it's at.
With the Sony presentation, like, they were really, I think, in my opinion, like, with the Sony presentation, they were really, you know, going along with, like, the same concept that how the Xbox One, how they did their presentation. And then I'm like, okay, it's a very, very solid presentation. And then like he waited until the very end where he's like, bam, okay, we're going to implement used games. Bam, we're going to implement where it's $3.99 and not $5.99. And that was, I think, like the kind of like the knockout punch that really put it to Microsoft.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like the other big thing we got to talk about too is just like, you know, he really hit those points, and this is kind of where I feel like Microsoft had dropped that ball, and where they had kind of picked it up on the Sony court was this. He harped and he made sure to keep bringing it back up. We want to make sure that, you know, this is for you guys, the gamers. We want to make sure that you can do whatever you want with the used game. We want to make sure that this property is yours. They catered their entire speech basically to the consumer itself, basically saying this: you bought it, it's yours, you can do what you want, we're not going to take that away from you. Whereas Sony felt like they were kind of just trying to dodge bullets. Or not Sony, Microsoft felt like they were trying to dodge bullets. Sony just kind of felt like, it was actually like they were handing us something as opposed to taking it away.
I think it's also, just to be fair, Sony did pretty much say the same thing as Microsoft about the DRM.
Right.
It's up to the developers. However, I think the difference is in that they're not enforcing it. They're not saying everyone has to have some measure of DRM. So you'll probably still see online passes and all that stuff that annoys us currently, but that still means you'll be able to trade it in, let your friends borrow it, and all that good stuff.
Yep. And backwards compatibility, it does not have any. However, this is kind of a little tricky thing with backwards compatibility because the online store for Sony is so much more developed than Microsoft's.
Did mention that you'd be able to stream your PS3 games through Gaikai, but you might have to buy it again. So it does have a strange form of backwards compatibility.
But here's the best thing. PlayStation Plus stuff transfers. That's it right there. That was the biggest thing right there. Your PlayStation Plus games transfer, all your PlayStation Plus benefits. That right there, I think, was a big point for them because I know that Microsoft's doing it too with the Xbox Marketplace. But
really,
the
Assassin's Creed 2 and Halo 3, woo.
Yeah.
I
think
5-year-old games.
The online store and the online actual market that Sony has built up is just so much more grand at this point. I mean, they have all these PlayStation 1 classics that I hate to say it, I'm buying again. I love the games as a kid. I don't want to play them on my freaking PS1. I want to play them on my PS3. So it's kind of nice to see that they're doing that. And plus, the rumor mill, and I'm not sure if it was actually released or not because I didn't check up on this yet. But rumor mill has it that with the PS4 they're going to start bringing up PS2 games to the marketplace more.
Yeah,
and they kind of started it. Yeah, they got us few, but they were announcing things like Final Fantasy X, 12, getting all the Square Enix stuff on there, things like that. So that's really exciting stuff.
Yeah, it is also worth mentioning that they did say, or rather they didn't say that they would have a free online service for multiplayer anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, that is disappointing for people who haven't been paying for it this whole time, but like everyone's been saying, there's a lot of infrastructure keeping up such things, and I think that the service will greatly improve having a pay gate for one, so you get less people just making billions of accounts to make, trolls and games and stuff like that. But I think it's a good thing, one, because it's going to bolster the service, it's going to give it a better reputation. I think it's also going to make it so that everyone has access to all these great games through the service. I mean, you get 27 games just for signing up. I think that's fantastic.
27! Right. And they give you more free stuff just for being a part of it.
Yeah, and you get discounts, a game every month, or whatever the deal is. I'm not currently a PlayStation Plus member, but, I mean...
You get a lot... Well, I am, but my PlayStation's broke.
Oh, well, there you go.
My fiancé is basically reaping in the benefits that she does not actually enjoy.
What do you do?
But yeah, no... I do think that's kind of one of the things. It's a negative and a positive for Sony, and I know it's kind of. I feel like it's kind of biased saying so. One of the biggest problems that the PS3 I kind of felt had was online gaming, and I do it was viable, it still worked, but it was a lot worse. I mean, one of the things I loved about my 360 when compared to the PS3 was simply the fact that I felt the connection was constantly better on my Xbox 360. Like I played all of my shooters, everything that's really online intensive on my Xbox for that simple reason. Like I hated, going into like 1,000 laggy games, and I felt like the actual communication system on the PS3 was a little less fleshed out. So I felt like from an online standpoint, the Xbox 360, Microsoft has really good stuff set up already that PlayStation is kind of now catching up to, hitting the mark on. So it's, I'm kind of hoping to see what they're going to do with it because I'm going to be honest, PS3, their multiplayer system, while it was free and I do appreciate that, it was a bit more of a letdown for me. Like I bought the PS3 first before the Xbox. I was a firm believer in Sony, the PS2, PS1. I grew up with Sony. And, PS3 when I first got them, just like, playing Call of Duty, playing, the first Battlefield, Battlefield Bad Company. And it was just kind of like, what, I feel like, I'm constantly just going into a game and I'm getting killed every 5 seconds because my connection sucks. And I don't even have a bad connection. I'm like, I have a great connection. I have full bars. What the hell is going on?
Right.
So
I hopefully we'll see a better connectivity and infrastructure and all that good stuff, since
Right.
now everyone's going to be paying for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that it's not as expensive as Xbox Live though.
It's,
That's another
I think,
good point.
$10 cheaper in the long run, $50 a year, isn't it?
It's $49.99, and it's and or you can do like month to month, and I think it comes out to like if you want to do month to month instead of a year, it's like $5 a month.
Yeah,
it's
like
really
$5
not
a
it's really not that bad, and I kind of think the way they're doing it too is a little bit better because they're doing like a kind of just a they have kind of different payment installment plans that I think are just a little bit better than Microsoft.
Well, random aside, because we're talking about the payments and things, I
Yeah.
also want to go back to Microsoft because they are being smart, going back to a cash currency and not Microsoft
Yes,
Yeah.
cash currency. Yep. They're doing the Sony thing, which is smart because cash currency is really, really big right now because it's kind of nice to have it because then you can transfer over to movies, things like that. So I think that's a really intelligent thing. Now we are getting motion control back again. The DualShock 4 controller will be motion control. You're also getting the new PlayStation I believe, is coming out.
Yep, it's going to be bundled with every system, a lot like the Kinect, but it's not a required thing.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And another thing too, looking at this right now, the Vita is not included, but you can't use the Vita as a controller. Is that correct?
You can remote play. They said that their plan is to have it so that you can remote play any PS4 game to your Vita. So yes.
I think that right there is basically a great move by them because I know the Wii U has it. You know, they have like that giant. We'll get to the tablet controller thing in a bit, but I think that's kind of a smart move. You know, to be able to port stuff out. I mean, Wii U. A lot of us, you know, I will be honest. I was skeptical when the Wii U first came out, and it was just like, oh, here's your control. I'm like, are you serious? If I wanted to carry my laptop around, I just carry my laptop around.
Right.
But you know what? There is the appeal to the fact that you know, when I have this set up on my TV downstairs, my fiance can watch the a million reruns of Law and Order SVU, and I can still play my game, and
Right.
we're not hindering each other. So you know what? The more I thought about it after we came out, I was like, that's kind of an intelligent idea, and to see Sony implementing their handheld and integrating it into that idea, I think is a very smart move.
Yeah, and as a one-time owner of a Vita, I think it's extremely important for them to start integrating that thing because it's a fantastic system and it has a lot of great potential. It's just it's squandered because no one really gives a crap about it, and it's not
Yeah,
OS.
true.
But I mean, it's a
No
great piece of
Pokemans!
tech. Yeah, and it has no Pokemans, that's sure, and no Monster Hunter anymore. Looking at you, Capcom, you dirty bastards. But it's definitely something they need to work on because if they really want the Vita to end up being a success and not a PSP2, as it were. I mean, I love my PSP, played tons of Monster Hunter on it, but yeah, I agree. It's something they could implement, and they're not forcing it on you. You don't have to go get a Vita. It's just going to be,
Right.
if you have one, great, here's some cool stuff you can do with it, and your system is enhanced by having it. They're giving you a reason to go get one.
And I think kind of the big thing about the Vita 2 is, talking about handheld market just, briefly, because this is about the consoles, not the handheld. But I feel like Sony is trying to play catch up on that, and I think this is kind of a nice way to help them. Because in Japan, not in America so much, but in Japan, like, the handheld market is the market. Like, consoles are kind of dying off a little bit there. So to kind of see them trying to bring it back full circle in the US is kind of nice. I don't know if it's going to work out necessarily as they plan. But, I think it's kind of a smart move just basically to say, like, hey, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to use it. But if you really kind of want this option, it's out there for you.
Yeah.
So here, here you go. So I think that's really intelligent to do that. It does have Bluetooth 2.1. PS4 does have Bluetooth, which Xbox, I'm still a little surprised Xbox does not have Bluetooth. I feel like that's kind of, my laptop that I bought back in 2007 has Bluetooth.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with that partnership they have with Turtle Beach now, where they're going to be able to push proprietary headsets on us again.
Yeah, well, that's a good point right there. And then also, it's got the original HDMI, it's got the 4K support, analog component, optical output, all that. And here's the biggest difference here's a big one that we didn't touch base on too, that I think we kind of need to touch base on. The Xbox One is regional locked. The PS4 isn't. So you can actually take this thing across region and have no problem.
True story.
Yep. I think that, that's smart. Sony knows that, their systems are more worldwide than, Microsoft has controlled an American market for a while. They've really killed America. They've really just hit it here. And basically, Sony's just like, well, we have all these countries. We're big in Europe, we're big in Australia. I know Microsoft's out there too, but they're kind of trying to hit it home. Basically, like this is for the world, not just for one region. I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's enough with PS4. They had a great come out. I feel like they showed a lot of great games. We're gonna get to the games a little bit later. Great games. They had a great presentation. I feel just between those two presentations alone at E3, I feel like the Sony one was a little bit stronger. But we'll get to the debate later. Let's move on to the Wii U. How you doing, Wii U? We didn't forget about you. Now, Wii U's been out for some time, so this isn't any new information. Just throwing it in there for the console comparison. The Wii U is $349.99, and you also there's a $299.99 version.
That has been pretty much confirmed to be sort of phasing out.
Yeah, they're phasing out the cheaper one. It does not have Blu-ray. It's 25 gigabyte optical disc proprietary. It does not have game and DVR. It does have the multi-core PowerPC Espresso. I think it's Espresso, right? Or is it Latte?
I think it's Espresso.
I think it's Espresso. And it's got 8 gigs of storage and 32 flash. It does have external storage. Really not much to talk about from our standpoint about E3, about Wii U. Wii U is basically more concentrated on game content. I will say this, though, just getting it out there about the system. The Wii U, I feel like Nintendo knows what they're doing. I do not like the controller. That's just me personal. Maybe it's just because I don't like holding a 30-inch tablet. I hate tablets. I don't know why I hate tablets. I just do. I sold tablets. I never used the tablet. I just don't like them. I just would rather have a computer. That's just me. I feel like my grandpa. Oh, back in my day, we had keyboards for everything. But, But you know what? I feel like the Nintendo and the Wii really are playing it smart at E3. They're playing to their strengths. The whole E3 comments.
Safe is the word.
Safe, strengths, call it what you will, but they know their market. I'm not expecting Nintendo to come and be like, you know what, we're going to change the way the shooter was played. I'm expecting them to come in with fucking Nintendogs. That's what I expect.
That's what they give you.
They give me cute critters. That's what Nintendo does. But I will say this, their presentation, not as exciting as the other two, but it did have some good points to it. It was kind of nicely done. They do have a lot of great games. We're going to get to the Wii U. But, all that aside, I think Nintendo's Wii U is doing decent. And, they're not trying to... I feel like they're playing it safe. They're kind of the third guy in the room. You have this giant epic...
fourth guy in the room at this point.
Well, yeah.
If I can
Steam
jump
box.
in here, I think that... I like Nintendo. I have no real problems with Nintendo personally, but, I think they're just in a really, really sort of awkward position right now because they're kind of that 1.5 generations in. They're not really next gen. They're a little bit like last gen, but kind of better. It's just, and at this point, I think with the Wii U only being a $50 difference from that to a PS4, I think without a price drop, obviously, they're going to be in a really awkward place here in a few months when we finally see these new systems come out. It's just... The Nintendo fans are going to buy the Nintendo system. They know that. That's why they release all... They weren't even at E3 for a press conference. They're just like, hey, Nintendo Direct, Nintendo fans, this is for you. I think they played it safe. They did what they had to do. They stole Monster Hunter from me. No bitter blood there, I promise. But it's weird because I want to like the Wii U, but...
yeah, me too.
I don't think it's... Just with what they showed in the Nintendo Direct, nothing's really coming out until 2014. So what's to tell me to justify buying it from
purchasing
now until
one,
when PS4 comes out?
And I think, but do you think it was wise of them to play it safe, or for them to jump at the throat? Because I think here's the thing: we already know the Wii U is a lesser. I hate to say it's not as advanced as the other two systems. So, do you think it was smart of them to play it safe, or do you think it was dumb, like they should have jumped in and be like, well, here's why we're better, and then fought the fight?
I think it was smarter for them to play it safe. I think they did the right move because, when the Wii and the PS3 and Xbox 360, when those systems debuted, Wii was front runner at, as in sales. They really expanded on sales and blew Xbox and PlayStation away with sales at first. However, as I think time went on and years passed, I think Xbox and PlayStation got a little bit more sales, and we just started to lose a little bit of interest. So they lost sales there. They don't have quite enough money, so what they did was instead of they didn't overextend themselves to bring out a system that maybe they didn't overextend themselves, and I think this was a smart move because they still have a good fan base with Wii U.
Right.
If I think they would have pushed for that extra, graphics, everything like that, to keep up with the 360 and the PS4, I don't think that would have been the right move. I think they did the right move. I'm just playing it safe.
Yeah,
Well, I agree with you, and I think that the problem here is that if we compare it to the Wii being the underpowered system that it was,
yeah.
it, for all intents and purposes, changed the entire gaming landscape as we know it. Like, that was the rise of casual games. Thank you, Wii, you did that, and that's why it sold so much. I think the problem that they now realize is that they did lose a lot of their core players in that move. Like, obviously your Nintendo fans are going to be over in the corner whacking it to Mario. Cool, but what about those folks who are looking for that?
Don't talk about my Saturday!
What about those people who, are on the Wii U playing like Call of Duty Black Ops, and there's only 30 people online playing it right now? Who are they playing to with the Wii U? It's just, I think it's in an extremely odd position for them right now. And I mean, it's not necessarily bad to say, hey, we've got, all these new games. You got Wind Waker HD coming out. Like, that's going to please a lot of fans, but they're looking for, like, the next big thing. Like, where was your Metroid Prime? Where was your Zelda U? Like, where was the stuff that the core gamers are looking for?
And I kind of agree with both points. I feel like it was smart of the Nintendo to basically sit the big conference out, because I kind of felt like they would have felt a little underwhelming if they kind of had this big press release, because you have Xbox One coming out, like, here's the system, here's the games, here's what we're doing to change it. PS4 coming out, here's the system, here's the games, here's what we're doing to change the landscape. And then Nintendo would just kind of come out and be like, here's what you already have, here are the games we're thinking about, what do you guys think?
Yeah, they didn't really say,
throwing it out there.
This so great.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like,
so
we made the system, so eventually we'll release some of the stuff you're probably expecting, your Marios and your Zeldas and Metroids. But until then, you've got some virtual arcade games. Have fun with that.
And I felt like that was the smarter. Like, I just personally think that's the smarter way to go, because if they've already released the system. So if they had this giant press conference like the other two, I felt like they're just going to be saying like, well, let's reinvent fire here for you, smoke and mirrors. Boom, here it is. The Wii U. Here's the difference. This one's a different color. Boom. Magenta.
Well, I think in the
Magenta.
I think in the advent of these new systems coming out, we're at least going to see a price drop on the Wii U, and I think we kind of need to see one, because I would
which
like
happened
to have
last
Wii
time
U for Monster Hunter, but I would like to see it at a cheaper price for Monster Hunter. And that way we can at least say we've justified the purchase. Like, if it's
of Monster Hunter.
For Monster Hunter. But if it's like $250, sure, that's cool. I would like to see it even cheaper than that. But I mean, I don't want them to be like, oh, we're gonna make dumb decisions and sell it at a huge loss. But I mean, if it stays at that $350 price point, they have an uphill battle against them. Like, that's it's gonna be so tough.
And I feel the same way with you. Like, I like a lot of Nintendo games. I just can't justify buying a Wii U. Like, I like Zelda. I used to play Zelda all the damn time. I like Super Smash Brothers, and that's something we're going to get to. There's a new Super Smash Brothers game coming out, and I'm at this crossroads just like, you know what? I can't justify $350 for, Super Smash. So it's
right.
That's the eternal battle, man. You gotta
it's the eternal battle, and I just feel like, Wii U playing it a little way too safe. So we'll have to kind of see where they kind of take it from here, but, on the floor, they are releasing a lot of game stuff on the floor. It's kind of periodically, but yeah, like you said, it's a little underwhelming from the Nintendo's court, isn't it, this year?
A little bit. But I mean, it's to be expected. I mean, they're playing, like you said, to their strengths. It's just that right now they're just kind of leaving everyone in the dark with something to look forward to from now until, September or so, when they start releasing these big budget games. And they've gone this whole time without any truly killer app. I mean, I love Monster Hunter a little bit, but it's not the game that's going to sell it to everybody, It's not like, oh, I gotta go buy a Wii U so me and all the homies can play Monster Hunter together. You should, just saying. But it's just, I don't know. I think the Wii U is in a really weird place right now.
Yeah.
And it needs a killer app. And we know Metroids and Marios and stuff like that are going to sell, but I mean,
Okay.
what are we going to do with it? It's strange.
Yeah. All right. Here's the big question then. Let's wrap up. We've already talked about all the consoles, pros, cons. Here's the thing. A little bit of debating in between. Here's the big one. Who do you guys think won E3? We're gonna start with you, Brian.
PS4. Was that a question?
PS4. Yeah. Well, let us know. Why do you think PS4 won?
From my limited standpoints, or my limited knowledge, it was really the absence of the negatives of the Xbox One.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you have to be online at all times. You have a robot watching you every step of the way. There are no such things as used games. I'm a cheap son of a bitch. I will buy the system simply because it's $100 cheaper.
And you can get cheaper games on it.
The negatives killed the Xbox. I didn't even have to look at the positives. The negatives killed the Xbox for me. So
yeah, it's a good point.
That was basically what my decision boiled down to.
Okay. Brent, what about you?
Yeah, I mean,
this is hard for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's hard for me, especially because, I really like the Xbox 360, and I've always been, like, an Xbox fan, especially with their games. A lot of their games, almost all of them I liked. PS4, the games were good, but there was more PS4 games that I didn't like than Xbox 360 games that I didn't like. So, but that being said, though, I still think PS4 won because three big issues: used games, lower price, and I should just say used games, lower price, and just for the fact that Xbox downfall is they have to be online all the time. And the only thing the reason I say it is just because I think some people, if the camera is going to be on all the time, I think a major problem maybe in the future where people may hack into the camera.
Oh God, don't even go there.
Well, I know. I'm just saying though, that could happen. Someone, genius, whoever gets an idea, hacking in the camera, and then all of a sudden, boom, they can see you at home.
And my decision is solidified.
Because it happened on PC computers where it's just like they could hack into my laptop and be watching me from my laptop camera right now, and I wouldn't know. I just think that might be an issue in the future. Hopefully, it's not. But that, and that's the reason why I think PS4 won. It's just lower price, and were the reasons that where Xbox has to be connected always. Yeah, and then with the Wii, I just don't think the Wii just can keep up with the graphics and everything. But they'll still do sales and do well.
Yeah. All right, and we move on. Eric, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here. I think PlayStation 4, this was their game to win or lose, and they nailed every point. I mean, we've got all the good stuff on their side. They're pro used games. They're gonna be $100 cheaper. Yeah, that's great. But I mean, I got to give it to Sony because in this round, I think Microsoft went a little too anti-consumer for me. I think they have little to no trust in their fan base. They think everyone's out there pirating and getting used games all the time and not supporting them, and they feel like they have to punish us. And they're putting all this anti-consumer DRM and online checks and what have you. Yeah, that's going to annoy some people, and it's going to turn off a lot of people too. But I think, yeah, echo time, cool. I just think it's going to be PlayStation 4's game this time around. It's their game to win at this point. I mean, $100 cheaper, yay, great.
Right.
But in the end, it's PS4, man. And I wanted Xbox to do well. I wanted them to come out and debunk all this stuff because I like Xbox. I love Halo. I'm gonna miss Master Chief to death. So it's killing me. But I got to give it to PS4.
Yeah, obviously, I think me reiterating all these points too. It's clear that I also am the same minority. Now, I will say this about Xbox One. I feel like the PS4 was more targeted toward hardcore gamers. So I do feel that in the long run, Microsoft did try to leveled off casually, but to casual audiences as well. You know, trying to kind of piss in Nintendo's market, but at the same time, it's, you know, to me, the really big thing is just like, I'm thinking about all the negatives that could come from them trying to target the you know, the casual market. You know, I keep thinking back to it as like, you know, always internet connection. You know, it's a media hub, but you always have the, you know, the stupid connect on. You know, things like that. It's really, I can't get around that. Like, I just cannot grasp it. Like, if you're targeting the casual market, you cannot cut off, you know, used games. Just, you know, just have a strong stance about it, and, you know, and not really have any sort of leeway on it. Like, I understand, you know, Sony hasn't really said, you know, we're gonna, you know, officially do this. It's up to the game companies. But at the same time, you know, Microsoft taking a huge stance, I feel like they just kind of closed off a lot of doors, and, you know, it felt like they were taking things away. And, you know, you can't do that when you're trying to sell a product. It's be like, oh, you can buy my product, but then you can't do this. So Sony just killed it to me. They came out, great presentation. I was really excited the entire time through the whole Sony thing. I was, you know, I felt like a kid again. And that's really what I was missing through Xbox. Like, Xbox, the entire time, I'm just, you know, well, how is this different from this? How is this different from this? Even their exclusives, you know, I'm excited for the games themselves, but at the same time, I really didn't feel like when I was really young, like, I felt Sony brought me back to being a little kid in a candy store. Like, I just was looking at it with eyes wide open, just like, show me more. And I think that's just really how Sony rocked it. They knew what they were doing. They planned it perfectly. And I think that it was a well played. Like, the entire time.
About games again.
Yeah, and you know, like I was telling my one friend, like, you know, I walk into work today. He didn't watch E3. He was, you know, he was busy that night. He just goes, so sum up E3 for you. And I just said, RIP, Microsoft, Xbox One, you were too young. It's just, it really just felt like E3. You know, at E3, Sony came in and they knew what they were doing. They just knew it.
They forced the GG.
They did. They forced
right.
they forced the GG, and I think that's why they won E3, because right now it feels like Microsoft has to play catch up, and I feel like PS3 doesn't. And I think that's the big major difference we're kind of seeing here, is that, you know, Sony right now has to kind of cater to their fans. You know, basically like, you know, hey, you know, our system isn't that bad, which I'm sure it won't be. Technologically, it does look phenomenal. But they have to play catch-up work, and that's not something that Sony really has to do it right now. So I'm going to have to give the win to them. But, you know, that's just me. Let's move on to something else, a little more fun, a little bit more less serious. Best controller. Mr. Brian, how do you feel?
Give it to the Xbox.
You do? Xbox, Brent?
Yeah, like, I mean, they've really didn't. I mean, none of them really changed. Well, the controllers really didn't change that much on any.
Well, the features did. The features did.
Features did a little bit, but yeah, I still gotta give it to the Xbox. I just think they just have the most well-designed controller of them all.
They do have a nice controller. I do like the Xbox controller. Brian, what do you think?
Well, you know how pragmatic I am. I'm practical to a fault. I'm not going to buy the Xbox One since it, in my mind, clearly lost this. So PS4 is the only controller I'm going to have. And as such, the PS4 controller is better.
What about the Wii U controller?
Yeah, we're not comparing which ones we're going to have. We're going to compare which ones.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Which one? Going to be better because it's going to be the only one I have.
It's better by default.
Okay,
That's right.
Eric, what are you thinking?
Just for the public, just for all the fans, just like, okay, which one? We said the systems, but which controller is the better? Which one would you rather use? Would you use an Xbox controller or a Wii controller on the PlayStation if you had the choice?
PS4 because I grew up with it, and the sticks are parallel to each other. They're not offset, which is easier for me to understand.
That is true. You never were comfortable on the Xbox. That is true.
Hell no.
Halo. I remember Halo. You were good at Halo. You just didn't like it. The controller. He hated the controller. I literally had to buy this kid a special crappy GameStop plastic shit controller, just that it had parallel fucking sticks. I will never forget that. He's like, I want to play Halo, but I can't use the controller. I was like, God damn it, you're gonna make me buy this, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
It was $5. But anyway, moving on. Stash, Mr. Eric, controller.
Well, I haven't held either one in my hand as far as PlayStation 3 or.
Well, just the features and everything like that. What looks
PlayStation 4,
better?
excuse me. Or
I don't think anybody's
Xbox.
held them in their hand.
I think they got some live demos on the floor at E3, which we are not at.
Yeah.
But I have held a
Bad
Wii
face.
U controller, and I do like the Wii U controller. It's basically it feels like a lighter Xbox 360 controller, which I appreciate. But I'm gonna have to agree with Brent. I think the controller for the Xbox One is better, just because I don't know. It's the parallel sticks for me is kind of the deal breaker. I've in this day and age grown more comfortable with the offset one. I'm still good with the regular PlayStation controller, and it's not just the sticks, it's the triggers. Like, if the triggers are the same as they are on the 360 controller with the Xbox One, fantastic. If they're the same on the PS4 controller as they were on the PS3, not fantastic. But I'm gonna just go on a gut feeling that the 360 controller is my controller to go to.
Ooh, wow. Here's
360. It's
And
Xbox
you
One.
just-
God,
yeah, Xbox One.
it's hard to
Xbox.
say.
God,
Not used to it.
we are now in the future, next generation.
Any comment on the
Wait,
any further
here's.
on the controller?
Well, no. Here's me. I'm a little torn. I'm a little torn on this one, and here's why I'm a little torn. My biggest thing about the controllers is this: I fucking love the Xbox controller for shooters, because offset I'm so much more used to, because the online play for the Xbox, which I felt a little bit more developed for Xbox 360. So I'm so used to Halo, I'm so used to Call of Duty on it. Like, I'm used to playing these games on my Xbox and not the other way around. So to me, that's kind of the big thing, is that, I'm looking ahead, like, I've really grown comfortable with the Xbox controller, and I'm going to miss that about it. But at the same time, I think another thing that's kind of hitting me right now is the fact that I just feel like the PS4 controller, excuse me, God, I'm doing it too. The PS4 controller, I feel it just has a little bit more features built into it, and I think the big thing for me is I feel like they're kind of going a little bit more innovative at Sony. Like, the fact that the actual controller itself has, touch pads and things like that built into it, that's kind of nice. It's Bluetooth input, and the fact that you can switch it out with a Vita. So to me, even though the Vita isn't the default controller, I'm going to play devil's advocate and just say I like what PlayStation's doing better, because I feel like they're actually trying to take the controller and do something more with it. It's not just a new-looking Xbox controller. It's actually something new that I haven't, done, that hasn't been done before, and I like that. I like that feeling. So I'm going to give it to Sony on that one.
Back and fix that damn D-pad.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, the D-pad. Oh. Damn. Like, seriously. That D-pad, especially like on the new silver controller, that thing pops off.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that great. I have one, and it's just not that great.
Yeah. I like the control. I think the sticks are better on that controller, but yeah, the D-pad just flies off. I like to play Mortal Kombat with the D-pad, I play...
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, fighting games are a lot better on the PS3, so... Yeah, combo breaker! I got a fatality and then use Doomsday and all right, well, let's move on. We're done with the consoles. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break. It's gonna be nothing to you guys. And